Hello. It's a little illustration I did the other day of a sort of robot man, and it'll do for this illustration. And if you look, it's basically exactly the humanoid shape, the things we called vessels. So you notice down here, I've said this before, it forms like an L shape between the foot and the lower calf. So if you, on this physical being, as it were, if you put the arms out straight, you bring the legs together with the feet slightly apart, you get this sort of symbol, or this sort of depiction, basically. So you've got the two arms, the sort of torso, legs together, and then the 2 feet coming out like that. It sort of reminded me of the topic of this video. It's described, particularly in spiritual terms, about the human body being a vessel. So we're a vessel, and we're in a sort of current situation, which you can see all around you. So that symbol, if we turn it upside down, as it were, because you have the crown here on the anchor. We'll just go through the component parts. These two parts are called the arms. This is obviously a traditional anchor because there are other types. Then you have what is known as the fluke. These two sort of arrowhead parts, which are also within that is the palm, and then at the very tip is called the bill. Interestingly, if you look at the depictions of anchors, or you may well see one in a harbour or something, or a museum, or sort of a public display, and you'll see it symbolically as in images and things. You've got the chain, which is rather like a caduceus, the way it sort of is always depicted around the anchor. This part, which would be like the torso and the legs, is called the shank. Now you have what is known as a balancing board. Maybe I've not put this quite in the middle. It's just the illustration I sort of copied. Then of course you've got the head. And then the ring, and you've got the stock, which you could say represents the legs. So if you combine the Ankh, which is basically a depiction of a human, and then you have this crescent, I'm not going to say moon, I'm going to say crescent of Venus, because the moon is quite a recent phenomenon in the sky. It's not in the ancient world. You may have heard the expression about dropping anchor. Try and get this, because I made notes on this page as well. So an expression, this comes straight off the internet. I found a sheltered cove and dropped anchor for the night to secure a vessel in place. You allow the anchor to fall to come to rest on a seabed. So it's sort of, in this interpretation, you could say that you're weighing things up. You come to rest on a seabed, so you're earthing, you're grounding yourself, as it were, as a vessel. You're in contact with the earth. Now the anchor is dropped from the bow, as sort of almost like a reference to that first horseman on the white horse. You're letting go. And the purpose of the anchor, it keeps the bow, the bow. Notice the word bow and bow. It depends on how you say it. The anchor keeps the bow of the vessel, i.e. your body, pointed into the wind as the ship safely pivots, preventing the ship from capsizing. So perhaps you can also see in this the symbol of Libra, the scales, where you're weighing things up, as it were. But now you're centered. So you're grounded and you're centered. When things seem stormy, i.e. the emotions, because I would like you, as you listen to this, to internalize all this. I'm using external representations, but I'm actually talking about the internal. And if you think about an anchor, often that is the only part of the ship that survives because it's the most solid part, so it sort of represents the skeleton. But of course, if you look at old anchors, they do start to corrode, which is also a reminder that anything in the physical realm is just temporary, it is finite. No matter how solid and how well cast it is, it will still corrode and eventually it will sort of be no more, as it were. It will return to dust, dust to dust, or flakes of iron that come off. So the anchor also provides stability. So as a vessel, when you seem to find yourself in a stormy environment, if you think of it in terms of when you're faced with new information which is causing an internal storm, you let go, you drop anchor, you ground yourself, then you weigh things up, so you come into this center balance. So you also have this balancing board right in the middle. It's sort of, you could say it's the equivalent of being heart-centered. What else have we written here? So the opposite of dropping anchor is to weigh anchor. And it's interesting when you think about the word anchor, it implies like the Ankh. It also implies core, Ankh core. So it's talking about the core of us. And obviously when you put an I in core, it becomes choir, because we're singing from the same song sheet. So when you weigh things up, you are considering, you are pondering, you are weighing. Notice where the crown is. It's dead center. And it's grounding, it's earthing, it's like flow. It's facts, logic, and organic wisdom. So you drop anchor, you let go, and the vessel lets go of beliefs, basically. You ground yourself, you weigh things up, you let the storm pass. You remain free-flowing, although the head is now grounded. But the vessel can now pivot. And it can sway like a tree. It's not going to snap. Because you are walking two worlds. You are walking a path within inside your vessel. But at the same time, you are also having to interact with the external, which is like a stormy, or can appear to be like a stormy sea. But of course, you can create the calm seas. You can bring calm to this reality. I'm of the opinion and of the belief, and I feel that a lot of this weather manipulation is purely from these scripts on the news, in this media evil age, to rock your emotions And therefore that energy is being harvested. And there being a micro and a macro, if it is causing a storm within inside you in feeling, and we project outward collectively, humanity is what is causing the earthquakes, the storms, the unsettled weather, as humanity is unsettled and rocked by weather manipulation. And what type of weather? How are we spelling weather? Are we spelling it as in whether it is this or whether it is that, or as in the external weather? It is all about weighing things up within one side of yourself, finding that you are basically like this shank and you need to be in balance. And because we are in this upside down world, the head is here, but the crown is here. But you could also say this is like the fall of man. When you ground yourself, and of course you come into a physical body, so you drop into this. So it's just another sort of conceptual explanation for you to internalize and maybe use this analogy to sort of have more of a sort of inner standing of yourself, so you are standing perfectly balanced like this anchor in this depiction. Obviously most anchors with the weights, they will sort of lean to one side or the other, but we need to be careful that we stay in balance and not become rocked. But I can also see in this, it is like a sort of arc. And notice arc, again, very much a word associated with ships and riding out storms and things. And of course you could say you present the bill to the earth. That's the very end part of this, what is called a fluke. It's an interesting that these are called flukes, this whole section. I mean, is it a fluke? Is it a coincidence? Or is it a coincide dance? So internalize any new information. You may, if you're feeling rocked and triggered by things, to drop anchor, let go, as it were, and ground yourself. Come back into your center to find yourself. Because ask yourself, do you feel like you could live in a community with others around you if you're going to be triggered by different ideas and things? Or do you have this ability to drop anchor and then weigh things up with inside yourself? Because if you earth yourself, ground yourself, bring yourself back within yourself and be present in the moment, you become in balance. And this also resembles like a cup. And if you think about it, this is now filling up and would then sort of rise like a sort of thermometer. You're sending that kundalini rising back up to the head. And then above that is the ring, which is also expressed in the Ankh. So just a few things to mull over, and only you know if you feel like you're being rocked by emotions of the external ocean of we can very much get lost and drown in the external world, all these things that are presented. So sometimes we need to find that cove and drop anchor and ground ourselves again and come back into our present moments. the more you do this, like, this can't be stressed enough, but the more you do this, the more you come in balance, come into the center in yourself, the illusions of fear and doubt will start to fall away, and it will get easier and easier to do this. This is from going through this experience of metaphorically dropping anchor, as it were, and dwelling for a while, but then weighing again, and then able to move on, just like a vessel. And we are in a human vessel after all. So the anchor, the humble anchor, suggests far more than what it would first appear. It's another sort of sign by the day given to us. But it's whether we can see these things, and that's by having perspectives. So you may want to turn the anchor around and examine it from a slightly different angle. But hopefully you'll get the sort of general idea, and don't limit yourself to just one thing. Sort of look at things and then look at it from all different angles, all different perspectives. But it involves doing this careful balancing act within oneself of weighing things up, just like the anchor. So just to recap, so think of the scales of justice, the scales of just is, because it is talking about the present moment, the now, so it just is. And then it's gone, and then it just is. It's a continuous cycle. And so you weigh things up, and you become like these scales, so you're now back in balance. If you think about it, if we just draw from the head, if we draw, you've got basically sort of a triangle again, a trinity or a pyramid. So I think we'll leave that there, and let me know what you think. If you can add anything to this, fantastic. If you can take anything from this that will help you, even better. So I will say love to you all, and have a beautiful, beautiful day, and another video will be coming soon, no doubt.